Hello, I hope you're doing amazing. So this is the Modern.priestess YouTube channel. And I first off want to wish you a warm welcome to my channel since this is my first video. It's my first official YouTube video. So if you're here during this milestone, thank you and welcome. I've been wanting to do a channel for a while, and here I am. So I am a professional astrologer. I really specialize in transits, mundane transits. And so I wanted to do a YouTube channel to analyze some major transits and really give value to people by really analyzing how it affects you guys personally. I also love doing weekly astrology updates as well, so this will be coming up too. And I love all things esoteric and occults, so I'm hoping that this channel will eventually spread out to many different mystical and spiritual topics. But at the base of everything, I am an astrologer and I love sharing information about astrology. So this is an astrology channel at the base. So thank you for being here. I wanted to start my first ever video on this channel talking about a very important shift in the astrological world, which is the shift of the nodes. So the nodes of faith, North Node and South Node, from Taurus and Scorpio to Aries and Libra. Now, one thing that is very important to consider before I move on is that I am a sidereal astrologer. So I don't use the tropical algorithm like most astrologers do in the Western world. So the sidereal system is a system that is not fixed compared to tropical and follows the progressive movements of the constellation over time. So its zodiac system is based upon the progressive movement of the constellation, whereas the tropical system is more fixed. So if you do want to watch for yourself or for someone else or whatsoever, I would recommend you use your rising sign that is associated with your sidereal chart. So you just have to calculate your birth chart in the sidereal system to see what your rising sign falls in this system, and you can use that to watch this video. So this is the first thing that is important to note. So in the sidereal world of astrology, the nodes of faith are switching signs on March 26th, 2022, I believe. And so this is starting a brand new 2-year cycle that is very karmic. And so let's first talk about the nodes of faith and what they are specifically for those of you who are not common with them. So the nodes of faith are essentially points of calculation in the sky. They're not planets. They're calculation points that have a very, very karmic connotation to them. So there's the North Node and the South Node, and both move on opposite end of each other constantly in the sky. And so the North Node in the sky rules kind of where our soul wants to grow the most and where we're experiencing the most karmic growth in order to evolve the way that we're supposed to on a soul level. So it's really kind of like where we're going, where we're directing a lot of our energy in order to grow and expand the most on a soul level. So it's kind of where we're experiencing a lot of karmic growth, a lot of karmic activity that wants to push us towards this realm of our lives, because this is really where our soul wants to evolve the most. The South Node on opposite ends is a bit of an opposite story. So the South Node really rules when we're analyzing it in a transit, in the context of a transit, it rules what we're letting go of in a karmic sense. So kind of what we're detoxing, what we're healing, what we're leaving, what we're releasing on a karmic level. So when the South Node is traveling through one of our houses or areas of life, it really represents an area in which we're not going to put as much focus. And it represents an area that's kind of, we're having to let go of some things karmically. We're kind of like ending some karmic contracts. We're kind of letting go and releasing of old things that are not aligning. We're also detoxing, just kind of doing a little bit of a spring cleaning to wherever the South Node is touching in your chart. So this is really the difference between the two. So again, the North Node, wherever it's traveling, represents where we're heading towards, because it's where we need to grow the most on a soul level. So it's where we're experiencing a lot of karmic growth, a lot of karmic activity, And the south node, which again is always traveling on opposite ends to the north node, represents what we're leaving, what we're releasing on a karmic level. It represents an area that we're going to focus a little less on. We're letting go of some things. We're detoxing. We are healing some things with that house. So this is really the difference between the two. So when the north node and the south node travel in the sky, they move or switch signs every roughly 2 years. So give or take a few months before 2 years, but it's around a 2-year period. And so whenever they do switch signs, this represents a new karmic story, not only for the collective, but for each one of us, as this event will be touching our birth charts in a different way, depending on our own personal rising sign and which house that these lunar nodes are going to be residing in for the next 2 years. This is also a very, very, very important point or karmic new cycle, because this is going to determine where the eclipses are going to be happening in your birth chart. Now, if you are not already aware of that, when eclipses happen in the sky, they're essentially full moons and new moons that are amplified in energy. And they're amplified in energy because they always happen in proximity to the north node or the south node. So they're always really activating this karmic change that is already transpiring in an area of our lives during the period of about 18 months. So this is why eclipses are so important or so talked about. It's because they have a very karmic connotation to them, and they really engage karmic changes in your life because they happen in the same sign or same area of life as the north node and the south node are residing in. So it's not only important just because we're all going to be starting a new karmic cycle, but it's also going to be important because we're going to know where we're going to be experiencing those eclipses in the next 2 years, and where we're going to be experiencing potent karmic sudden shifts in our lives for the next few years as well. So essentially what I'll be doing in this video is I'll be going over all 12 rising signs in order to really understand where the lunar nodes are going to be residing in your chart for the next 2 years. So which houses they're going to be affecting, in order to facilitate the understanding of which karmic cycles are starting for you guys, and kind of where you can optimize your energy in regards to that, and also just having a higher awareness of where you're going to experience a lot of karmic activity, karmic growth for the next 18 months. So if you do want to know how this will affect you personally, keep watching this video, and we will get into it very shortly. I do recommend, once again, that you check your sidereal rising sign and not your tropical rising sign for the contents of this video. So if you are in Aries rising in sidereal, so in tropical, that would be Taurus rising. So if you're in Aries rising in sidereal, this is how this transit will be affecting you for the next 18 months. So for Aries placements, sun, moon, rising, especially rising, and moon as well, honestly, this is going to be a very, 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 very important next 18 months. It's going to be very karmic. It's going to be a very potent time for you. A lot of changes in your life, a lot of changes in your personal identity and who you are. So this is a time period that you're likely going to remember for a long time. And this is because the north node, which is the representation of where we're experiencing the most growth on a soul level, where we're experiencing the most karmic growth right now, is moving in your first house of the self, the identity, the way you perceive yourself, and the way the outside world perceives you as well. And so quite frankly, all of the energy is going to be directed in this area for the next 2 years, meaning that you're going to be experiencing a lot of karmic growth within yourself, within the way you identify yourself, within the way that others perceive you, within who you perceive yourself at, within your identity, within your motivation, within where you're going in your path next. And so it's a very, very potent time of many changes, especially in yourself, but obviously the changes that you engage in yourself and your identity at this time will directly ripple into all other areas of life. So this is why for Aries rising, it is much more important of a transit, I would say, because this is directly affecting just yourself, how you perceive yourself and your direction in life. And by working on this and by growing this area throughout the next 18 months, you're going to notice that many other areas of your life start shifting and changes with those changes, because obviously any changes that you do within yourself, any growth that you do within yourself will then obviously catalyze growth and changes in any other area of your life. So obviously relationships might change, jobs might change. As you discover yourself, as you discover your identity in this concept of yourself grows and expands karmically over the next 2 years, you're going to start noticing a lot of shifts in your life, obviously not just in yourself, but everything around you. So the South Node, which is what we're letting go of, what we're purging, karmic releases, this is going in your 7th house for the next 18 months. So 7th house is the house of partnerships. It's the house of marriage, one-to-one partners. And so you might notice that for the next 2 years, less focus has to be put on other people. More focus has to be put on yourself, your desires, your identity, your motivation, where you're going, and you're having to release maybe old ways of approaching your relationship. Maybe if you have the tendency to be a little codependent, maybe if you have the tendency to give up some of your needs in order to compromise for others constantly, these are the kinds of patterns with other people that are gonna be asked to be let go, or you're gonna have to let go for the next 18 months. Sometimes when the South Node is in the 7th house, it can indicate certain endings in our current relationship. So you might see relationships that end in your life. You might see friendships that might just not resonate anymore in response to this really intense new growth and new expansion that you're experiencing in your identity, in yourself, and the way that you perceive yourself. So this is directly going to affect obviously your one-to-one relationships, but you're really going to have to heal, purge, and let go old ways of approaching your relationships that simply just don't resonate anymore, that can't go on with you on a karmic level. Again, this can look like more of an internal things of letting go of old beliefs, letting go of old patterns with relationships, or it can be quite literal, as letting go of a relationship or letting go of a friendship in your life. As you have to grow as a person and you expand in new ways that simply a lot of different areas of your life will not align anymore. So very, 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 very potent period. You're really going to grow karmically when it comes to really the way that others perceive you through and growing your own perception of yourself and your identity. So this can look like just finally discovering who you are at your core and what you want to do and what your purpose is. Finally discovering your true identity, what you represent, and how you want others to perceive you. The first house is also the physical self, the physical body as well, your appearance. So this may be a time where as you discover more of who you are, your identity, the way that you show up physically to the rest of the world may also grow karmically. So you may discover a bit more of your style, a bit more of how you want to, appear or appeal to the rest of the world. So this may be something that you will notice really grows a lot over the next 2 years. But all in all, this is a very potent period. You're going to be experiencing eclipses in your first house of identity of the self. You're going to be experiencing eclipses in your 7th house of relationships as well. So these are the two areas that are going to be mainly highlighted over the next 2 years. By the way, I am French, so I'm very sorry if I'm having anything that is not comprehensive because of my accent. But yeah, as I was saying, these two areas, the self versus the other in the relationships, are in the spotlight for you for the next 2 years. But mainly, karmically, your soul really wants to grow the most through you exploring just who you are, your identity, and the way that you perceive yourself, your path moving forward, what motivates you. And so this is a time to focus on you, focus on yourself, your needs, your desires. Spend some time by yourself, spend some time reflecting on the person that you are and how you want to be perceived and what you want to pursue. And yeah, just your desires. It's really a time to refocus all that energy on yourself. especially if you're someone who tends to focus a lot on others and it tends to put others' needs before you, you're going to really start to notice that you can't really do that for this next 18 months. It's actually something that you need to let go of as you are really being called towards a lot of karmic growth in yourself and your identity and who you are as a person. So I hope that this is helpful. I am wishing you an amazing next 18-month cycle, very, very, very potent for Aries placements, especially Sun, Moon, and Rising. But this is for you guys that have an Aries rising. So I hope this is helpful. I'm wishing you guys an awesome 18-month cycle. And yeah. So if you are a Taurus rising in the sidereal system, or that would be Gemini rising in tropical system, this is how the changes of the lunar nodes will be affecting you. So over the last 2 years, the North Node has been traveling in your first house and the South Node was in your seventh house. So you've done a lot of karmic growth when it comes to quite literally your identity, the way that you perceive yourself, the way that the world perceives you, how you want the outside world to really perceive you, your motivation, your path, where you're going. You've really defined yourself very, very clearly. And that was where you needed to go the most on a karmic level. That's where you needed to grow the most. Maybe you've had a lot of karmic stuff happen in your relationships as well. So a lot of changes, maybe a lot of purging, maybe a lot of letting go of old relationships or old beliefs, old patterns in your relationships as well. So it's been a lot of personal karmic growth at this time, really defining yourself and who you are. And that was probably a very, very potent time. So this cycle is ending. So this karmic cycle is ending. So at this time, when the lunar nodes are really switching houses, you're probably feeling like you have just such a clear idea of who you are, and maybe even like in your appearance and how you want the world to perceive you on an external level. You just have such a clearer idea of who you are, your identity, and where you're going. And so this cycle again is ending, and you're entering this new cycle where the North Node and the South Node are moving into sidereal Aries and Libra. And so for you, that falls in your 12th house, in your 6th house. So the North Node, which is where you're going, where you're heading, where you're going to experience the most growth on a soul level, is moving in your 12th house. And the South Node, which is what we're purging, what we're letting go of, what no longer aligns with us, is moving in your 6th house. And so on a karmic level, you are moving towards matters of the 12th house. So you're wanting to grow on a soul level through engaging in activities that have to do with the 12th house. And so what is the 12th house? It is the house of spirituality. It is a house that's really related to spiritual practices, to faith. It is a house that really relates to everything that is kind of very abstract, or everything that we cannot perceive with our five senses. So it's a very occult oriented house. It's a very it's a house that's really associated to emotions and to compassions, and to be able to feel things that we usually don't with our five senses. So it's usually associated with Pisces. So it is a very emotional, very psychic, very spiritual house. It does relate to spiritual practices and beliefs as well. But it is the house of isolation. It is the house of resting. It's the opposite energy of Virgo, and Virgo is all about schedules and organization. The 12th house is all about abstract matters, resting, introspection, going inwards. So this is really where you're heading right now, because it's where you need to go in order to experience the growth, the karmic growth and the karmic changes that you need to experience at this time. Another thing is that the 12th house is the house of endings. It is the last house of the astrological cycle. So usually it indicates a time where there's a lot of ending, a lot of loss, possibly as a lot of things are purging. It is the house that represents also things that are hidden to us. So things that we cannot see usually will pinpoint to the subconscious, and things that we repress or things that we choose not to see. So what's really happening for you is that for this next 18 months, you are really being asked to engage with this area of life, because it's where you're experiencing the most growth. So this is a time where you're going to be pushed to spend more time alone, spend more time resting, spend more time introspecting. It's really going to be a time of deep, 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 deep introspection. And you might have a lot of things that are usually hidden being exposed to you. It's really going to be a time where possibly you're going to be exploring your subconscious, your psychology more deeper, and things may really be exposed to you, like certain patterns or certain energies that you usually hold or suppress that you usually don't see might get exposed, and thus a lot of things will get purged in your life through that exploration. So it can be a time where someone, for example, will start spending a lot of time digging deep in their spirituality and spiritual practice, and then they realize that they're doing something that is really not aligning, and that they were kind of hiding that from themselves all along. And then they kind of really let go of this old job or this old way of being. So it's going to be a time where you're going to go inwards, you're really going to introspect, you're going to rest. But most of all, you're going to explore your spirituality even deeper. You're going to explore your spiritual practice. And because this is a north node indicating that there's a lot of karmic growth and changes happening in this house for you, this may be a time where you discover a lot of new spiritual abilities that you didn't think you had, or that you really grow and expand your spiritual abilities in a very karmic level. So really explore your spiritual practice, explore your spiritual beliefs, explore the occults, mysticism, or anything that has to do with this area, because this is really where your soul wants you to go in order to grow the most karmically at this time. Now, the south node is traveling in your sixth house. And so the south node is all about what we're letting go of, what is pretty much ending in our lives right now, and what has kind of completed their karmic cycle and is being cleared from our lives, and where we're kind of detoxing a lot of old energies. And so what is the sixth house? The sixth house is the house of health. It is the house of mundane routine. It is the house of mundane habits. It's also the house of work. It's a very mundane house. So quite opposite from the 12th house, obviously. So what is going to happen for you is that a lot of purging, a lot of detoxification needs to happen in this area right now for the next 2 years. And so you might have a lot of, maybe flare-ups with your health. A lot of things will be showing you karmically what you need to be letting go in terms of your health. So this is a really good time to engage in literally any kinds of like detox when it comes to your health, your physical health, your diet. Maybe it's a time to really start considering things like detoxing from certain foods, or literally just like fasting, anything that really allows you to detox maybe some habits that are not super good for you when it comes to your health, that you will start to notice over the next 2 years. Maybe it's time for you to detox or to let go of habits, certain daily habits that you have that are not so good for you as well. So you will start to see that you karmically are starting to let go of old energies when it comes to the way you treat your body, or the way that or the habits that you engage in every single day. So for example, someone who is a very frequent smoker, and it's a very ingrained habit of them that is not very good for them. And yeah, when they go through this south node in the sixth house, they might very well let go and kind of detox, release of this old habits, because karmically it's just not aligned anymore, and it's a change that has to happen. So expect those kinds of changes. Health flare-ups might appear, but they're really just showing you karmically what you're needing to let go and detox of right now. This may also be the case for your work situation. You might have a lot of endings, just things that are being cleared out of your life when it comes to your work. So it might be you just really releasing an old work field, or releasing an old way of approaching your work, or whatsoever, something along those lines. So those detox, those that clarification of things in regards to your habits and your health are really going to allow you to step even more into your north node area, which is rest and introspection, and exploring more abstract spiritual topics. So really, you detoxing old energies when it comes to your health and your habits are really going to facilitate your journey right now, which is to rest and introspect, and just go inwards a little bit more for the next 2 years. So Taurus rising, I hope this helps you. I hope this guides you. And I'm wishing you an awesome next 18-month cycle. If you were a Gemini rising in the sidereal system, or that would be a Cancer rising in the tropical system, this is how the nodes of faith and their change in new signs is going to affect you personally. So for the last 2 years, the North Node and the South Node were sitting in your 12th house and your 6th house. So the North Node has been in your 12th house for the last 2 years, which means that on a karmic level, you've had a lot of growth in your spirituality, your spiritual practices, your spiritual faith. You've also went inwards a lot. You had a lot of introspective time, a lot of time to yourself, where you've possibly uncovered and discovered things about yourself that were usually hidden. A lot of things came up. Maybe you have purged and let go of a lot of things in your life through uncovering things that were usually hidden about yourself. So maybe a lot of things purge, a lot of things changed, but mostly this newfound connection and growth with your spiritual senses, with your spirituality, a new connection to, the world around you in a bigger way, in a bigger perspective. So that's been really where you've been experiencing a lot of growth. You've been also purging and letting go of old ways when it comes to your health, when it comes to your daily routine, when it comes to your habits, your day-to-day habits, and your work as well. So a lot of purging, a lot of letting go karmically has been happening there. So at this time, the nodes are about to switch in a new sign. So 2 new places in your life. You're probably feeling right now like this cycle is really completed. You feel like you have this newfound sense of, connection with your spirituality and your spiritual practices. And you just have this newfound growth when it comes to the way that you perceive life in general, in a more spiritual sense. And you have really just this newfound, standing when it comes to your health through purging a lot of old energies in the last 2 years. So this cycle feels really completed for you. And this cycle is really coming to an end as the North Node are switching from Taurus and Scorpio to Aries and Libra. And so the North Node, which is where we're going and where we're heading in order to experience the most karmic growth, is going into your 11th house. And the South Node, which is what we're purging, what we're letting go of karmically, is heading into your 5th house. And so the North Node really represents, again, where we're going, where we're experiencing the most karmic growth. And the North Node is always a new energy. It's kind of like what we haven't explored before. And we're really being nudged there in order for us to really grow on a soul level. And that for you is going to be happening and transpiring in the 11th house of friendships, groups, communities, and long-term goals and dreams. So this is really where you're going to be experiencing this new cycle of karmic growth over the next 2 years. You're also going to be experiencing many eclipses there. So a lot of sudden changes that are very karmic when it comes to your friendships. So this is a time where you're going to be experiencing a lot of growth in your friendships. You might be exploring friendships that are very new, maybe unusual, new groups that you usually wouldn't associate with. Just new experiences when it comes to friendships in general are really what's happening for you on a karmic level. So this is a time that's going to be very much a big contrast from what you've been experiencing in the last 2 years of isolation and introspection when you were going through your 12th house North Node cycle, which was, it asked of you to rest and introspect a lot, to let go of a lot of old energies in your life. Now, this growth that you're having to do has to come through being social and going out and being with groups and communities. So this is a time where, the most time that you spend with friendships, with communities, is where really you're going to allow yourself to grow the most as a person on a soul level, because a lot of karmic activity is happening through your friendships. A lot of karmic friendships are going to come to you. A lot of people, in the forms of friendships or, communities are going to be activating a lot of things within yourself, which is going to allow you to grow karmically. So, be social, go out, be with groups of people, be with communities. This is a time where you might really engage with new communities. You might engage in like activism or things along those lines. You might just spend more time with larger groups of people. And through doing that, you're really going to be able to identify more of, your personal expression, your personal place in the collective, who you are in the collective amongst many other people. What do you have to offer to the collective, right? This is really what you'll be gaining clarity into through spending more time with groups of people, with friendships. But like I said earlier, it's a time of growth in your friendships. You're really going to grow your friendship groups. You're going to grow communities. You're going to hang out with friends that you haven't really hung out with before. You're going to hang out with communities that are very new to you, very fresh. You've never really hung out in that or really been around these types of communities before. And this is going to be really refreshing, and it's going to teach you a lot of new karmic lessons and growth within yourself. The 11th house also rules long-term goals and long-term dreams. So this is a time where you might really be growing new goals and new dreams for yourself. So you're really going to be able at the end of this 2-year cycle to identify more clearly what your end goal is, what your end point is in this life, what your dreams are, what your long-term dreams are. So it's a good time to explore that, but you're going to grow those long-term dreams of yours a lot in the next 2 years. The South Node, which is what we're purging, what we're letting go of, is in your 5th house for the next 2 years. So the 5th house is the house of children. So quite literally, if you're someone who has children, this could be a time where you need to let go of your children. You need to, maybe they go off to college or something, and you need to let go of them. There's this sort of like purging in your relationships with your children in some way or another. But the 5th house is also the house of creativity. It is the house of self-expression. It's the house of fun, passions, and hobbies. So maybe a time where you're letting go of something that you were previously passionate about that you're just not anymore, or a previous creative expression that you were doing that does not resonate anymore. Kind of like it has like ended its contract. So it's being purged out of your life in order for maybe an old way of expressing yourself, or an old hobby, an old passion maybe that you were exercising in the past, or maybe even past lives, kind of comes back around in order for you to explore it once again. So it's a time where you might just be really purging when it comes to your self-expression, to the way that you express yourself, you know, your confidence level and your confidence in general, the way that you perceive yourself, and your own confidence may also change. You may release old ways of, you know, approaching your self-confidence. So that is really good as well. But just all in all, that concept of self-expression through your passion and through your hobbies is something that's really going to get kind of a purging or a process of detox that's going to happen in the next 2 years. So old passions, again, old hobbies are really going to start flowing out of your life in order to make space for possibly new hobbies and new passions in the future. So yeah, all in all, just be social, get out, be with communities, be with new groups. You know, that might look like exploring, going to concerts and being with people that explore a new music genre that you've never really been around before. This may look like you suddenly hanging out with people that are more like in a spiritual community. So just being with communities, being with groups is extra potent for you at this time, because that karmic growth that is wanting to happen to you on a soul level is coming through your friendships. Again, because the North Node really indicates where we're experiencing the most growth on a soul level. So what is really catapulting this growth for you, or for us, or what is catalyzing this growth for us? So for you, that's going to be your friendships and your connections. So look for friendships, look for community, and yeah, you're going to be experiencing a lot of new activity in this realm. So it's very exciting. And yeah, I hope that this is helpful for you. Again, just be social and be with community at this time is going to be very potent on a karmic level. I hope that you get value out of this video, and I'm wishing you an awesome next 18-month cycle. So if you are a Cancer rising in the sidereal, or that would make you a Leo rising in the tropical system, this is how the changes of the nodes are affecting you personally. So the North Node and the South Node are changing signs. They're changing from Taurus and Scorpio to Aries and Libra. And so for the last 2 years or so, you've been experiencing this karmic cycle of growth when it comes to your friendships, especially. So the North Node has been in your 11th house of friendships over the last 2 years, which means that you've been experiencing a lot of growth in your friendships, in your communities, in your groups. You've possibly been connecting with new friends, new communities, and those new connections have really allowed you a lot of deep and powerful karmic growth on a soul level. You've really been growing as a person through exploring new networks and new friendships and new communities at this time. So it's been a really potent time of growth through your friendships, and you've been growing your communities and your network a lot over the last 2 years. You've also been purging and letting go possibly of old passions, old hobbies, old ways of expressing yourself creatively. Maybe you've reconnected with old expressions as well. But it's been overall a very karmic period when it comes to your friendships and your community. So at this time, at this moment, this cycle is ending. So you're probably feeling like very completed when it comes to your friendships and your communities. Maybe you feel like you finally found your niche when it comes to people. You finally found like your groups, your preferred group of friends. You feel like you've grown a lot in terms of your friendships. You also feel like you've grown a lot as a person through your friends at this time. So you really feel like this sense of accomplishment or completion when it comes to your friendships and the people that you associate with, and really who you are and like where you stand in terms of like the collective and larger groups of people. So this is really what's been happening for you for the last 2 years, but now this karmic cycle is ending and it's making place for a new 2-year cycle that is beginning in your 10th house of career and in your 4th house of home and family. So the North Node is moving in your 10th house and the South Node is moving in your 4th house. So this means that karmically you're having to go towards matters of career and professional life. So matters of the 10th house. So you're going to be experiencing a lot of karmic growth in your 10th house. And you're also going to be growing a lot as a person on a soul level through matters of the 10th house. So as I just mentioned, the 10th house is the house of career. It is the house of professional achievements. It's the house of your public life, your reputation. So this is really going to be an area of life that's going to really go through a lot of karmic growth, karmic changes in the next 2 years. And it's also going to be a space that's going to allow you to grow a lot as a person on a soul level. So you're going to be growing your career matters. You're going to be expanding your career life in ways that you possibly haven't before. You may be exploring a new career path. You may be building a new reputation for you. And you're also going to be growing a lot as a person through activities of the career, through exploring your public vocation, through exploring your professional ventures. So it's going to be a time where you're going to be hyper focused on matters of career, on matters of public life. And that's okay, because on a soul level, on a karmic level, this is where you're meant to grow. This is where you're meant to grow the most as a person as well. So this is really where you can expect a lot of new karmic shifts and a lot of new karmic growth and a lot of karmic focus towards the next 2-year period of your life. So you're also going to be experiencing a lot of eclipses in this house. So a lot, again, of karmic changes, new growth are coming in your career. So it is a good time to put energy in your career for the next 2 months. It's a good time to figure out like what you want to offer to the public space and kind of what you want to be known as in the public sphere as well. So it's a time where your reputation is really going to grow. And by the end of this 2-year cycle, you're going to notice that you really have this very strong newly built reputation, and people seem to just really recognize you for what you do in your career. And yeah, so your reputation is going to go through a lot of karmic growth as well. So it's a good time to put your energy towards your career. It's a good time to expand your career, possibly in ways that you haven't before. This is where your growth is really supported. Now, the South Node, which rules what we're letting go of, what we're releasing, what we're detoxing, is in your 4th house of home and family. So this is going to be a time where you're possibly not going to be as focused in matters of home, in matters of family anymore. So it's a time, again, where you're really focusing on your career, and you may not be spending as much time at home, or you may be separating a little bit from your family. This may be a time where quite literally you could be separating from your family in some way or another, or there could be some sort of karmic endings in your family. So your parents or your family members could go through a lot of changes, or you could also be like leaving your hometown, for example, in order to pursue new career growth. Or this can be a time that You may be releasing or letting go of a current domestic situation. So you may be moving out. It's very common for people who have South Node going through their fourth house to move around or move or change their domestic situation, especially in favor of their career lives, of their career ventures. So you can expect that. You can expect just maybe letting go of old ways of approaching your home, of approaching your domestic life. Maybe a time where you're exploring a lot of your past, a lot of your foundations, and it may be a time where you're letting go of a lot of past emotional patterns that you've inherited, maybe from ancestors or also maybe from family. So it can be a time of really deep healing where you're detoxing and letting go of old emotional patterns that may be coming from your foundations with your family or from your ancestry line. So it's a good time to really work on those, emotional patterns that come from your past and really let go of the past, detox the past, and let go of the karmic ties that you have with your past. But all in all, it's just a time of, new growth, new expansion in your career. So expect that. Expect your career to go to expand in ways that it hasn't before. And you may be exploring even a new career field that you haven't before, and that builds you this newfound reputation. So again, put energy towards your career at this time, because not only is it meant to expand, but as a person, as a soul, you're meant to grow through matters of your career and through your professional life. So yeah, I hope that this is of value to you guys. I hope that this helps you, guides you for this next 2-year karmic cycle that you're going to be experiencing. Yeah, I think I'm pretty complete. So I'm wishing you guys an awesome next 18-month cycle, and I will see you guys soon. So if you are a Leo rising in the sidereal system, or that would be a Virgo rising in the tropical algorithm, this is how the North Node and the South Node changing signs will be affecting you personally. So over the last 2 years, the North Node and the South Node were residing in Taurus and Scorpio. And so on March 26th, they are changing in Aries and Libra. And so in the last 2 years, if we're going to reflect a little bit on the last karmic cycles that you've just experienced, the North Node and the South Node were residing in your 10th house and in your 4th house. So the North Node was in your 10th house and the South Node was in your 4th house. So over the last 2 years, you've been experiencing this karmic cycle of new growth and new expansion when it comes to your career, when it comes to your reputation. You've possibly been expanding your career in new ways, maybe in new ways that you would have never thought that they would expand. You've possibly maybe grew a lot of your personal public vocation and what you want to offer to the rest of the world, what you want to experience in terms of your career. Maybe you really expanded that and grew that and experienced a lot of karmic changes in your career, which then in turns really affected your reputation and how you show up in the public life. So you've possibly also grew a lot as a person through exploring your career and through exploring the ways that you want to be of service to the rest of the world. So that's really been where you've been growing the most karmically. The South Node has been in your 4th house, which means that you've been releasing and letting go of old things, maybe in your family, maybe in your home life. Maybe you actually moved, maybe you let go of an old home. And so maybe you let go of old past patterns, old emotional patterns, etc. So, but a lot of that karmic growth has been transpiring in your career and in your career ventures. So at this time, this cycle is ending. So you're probably feeling really completed in terms of your career and in your professional life. And you feel like you've experienced a lot of, important growth in this space. And you feel like you just have such a more fulfilled and clear picture of who you are in the public space and what you offer in terms of your career. And you're feeling very completed in this realm. Now, this karmic cycle is ending and you're about to start a new 2-year karmic cycle as the North Node are changing signs from Taurus and Scorpio to Aries and Libra. And so the North Node is going to be moving into your 9th house for the next 2 years, and the South Node is going to be moving in your 3rd house. And so the North Node really rules where we're heading and where we need to go in terms of in order to experience the most karmic growth at this time. So it really represents an area of life in which we need to focus on a little bit more, because it's this area of life that is providing us new expansion and new soul growth. The South Node really represents what we're purging, what we're letting go of, what kind of has, completed its karmic time and it's ready to be released and ready to be let go of. The North Node often represents, things that we don't necessarily recognize or know yet. It really represents new expansion and new experiences that we haven't lived before, but those new experiences really is what grows us the most on a soul level. And so for you, it's going to be all happening in your ninth house for the next 2 years. And so you're going to be experiencing karmic growth, new expansion in your ninth house area of life. And so the ninth house is the house of higher minded studies. It is the house of wisdom. It is the house of higher minded studies such as religion, such as spirituality, such as metaphysics, such as philosophy, but it also rules higher fields of studies, such as anything you can learn in college or in university. The ninth house is also the house of long distance traveling, other cultures, and the ninth house overall is the house of the perspective, the larger perspective that we have of the world around us. And so the larger belief systems that we have of reality as we know it. And it's kind of like what we believe to be true about the world around us and the way that we perceive everything on a larger scale. And so this is really what's going to be subject to a lot of karmic growth over the next 2 years. This may be a time where your perception of the world, your beliefs around the world around you is going through this new and profound expansion, and you're really viewing things around you and the world around you in a whole new different way. Now, this may come through, a traveling experience that is very unexpected or very surprising, because the North Node will be touching Uranus over this summer. So you can expect a lot of new, unexpected, and surprising growth to come in this ninth house area of life. And for you, this new perspective, this newfound belief about the world around us may be coming through, an unexpected traveling experience where you might get to travel abroad. And this experience of expanding your viewpoints and going to a whole new different place may really just change your life, because it really changes your perspective in such a profound way. So you can expect something like that to be changing your perspective, or, this change of perspective that you might be experiencing could come about through, new fields of studies or new studies that you engage in for the next 2 years. So you might be, for example, studying something completely new, but that really changes your perspective and really changes your mind around the world. And you could be learning, for example, about astrology, or you could be, getting into some different forms of abstract knowledge, such as philosophy or such as religion. And just exploring these higher minded topics is really just shifting your perspective, is changing your mind in such profound ways that you're approaching day-to-day life in a whole new way, because your perspective of the world around you is shifting in new expanded ways, in new ways that it hasn't before. So the way that you perceive life right now in a broader way is about to be shaken up, and it is about to be expanded in ways that you thought was not possible. So this shift of perspective, once again, can be really triggered through, traveling, or can be triggered through studying new kinds of wisdom, new kinds of knowledge that you haven't before. So it's a really good time to get into more abstract forms of knowledge, such as, spirituality, metaphysics. It's a good time to connect with like a spiritual healer, a spiritual guru. It's a great time to read books that touch on more abstract and higher minded topics. It's a good time to just expand and experience new things when it comes to traveling, or just, again, like subjects of learning, because your expansion during this time is really changing your perspective of the world in a very karmic way. And those changes of your beliefs and your perspective is really changing yourself in a karmic way as well. So The south node, which is what we're purging, what we're letting go of, is traveling through your third house for the next 2 years. And the third house is the house of communication, but it's also the house of day-to-day thinking and day-to-day thinking patterns. And so you may be releasing old ways of communicating, old ways of expressing yourself during this time. You also may be releasing old mental patterns that does not serve you anymore, that do not serve you, because your perspective of the world around you is expanding so much that you're having to purge old ways of thinking and old mindset and old thinking patterns that are just not aligned anymore, that do not serve you anymore karmically. So yeah, it's very intellectual karmic cycle for you. It's very mental. It's very all about the mind and about learning and wisdom. And a lot of mental activity is bound to happen that is very karmic over the next 2 years. But again, very good time to think about traveling. Really good time to think about learning new kinds of, higher minded wisdom, getting into esoteric wisdom, getting into spiritual wisdom, connecting with more higher minded wisdom is really good. What's going to be allowing you to expand and grow the most on a soul level. This is really where you're expanding. And the North Node is where we're having to put more focus on for the next 2 years. And so for you, the focus has to be put on those matters, of traveling and of higher minded studies and of really building or growing your personal perspective and your personal beliefs of the world around you. And on the contrary, with the South Node, you're having to release and let go of some things. And in this case, it is possibly letting go of, thinking patterns and certain mental patterns and certain ways of communicating and expressing your ideas. The third house is also the house of siblings. So if you have any siblings, this also may be a time where you might be letting go of, maybe an old way of approaching your relationship with your siblings or something along those lines. So I hope that this was of value to you guys. A very cool cycle, especially good because it is going to be trining your ascendant. So this this newfound perspective that you're building throughout this time it's feeling very good for you on a personal level. It's giving you a lot of opportunities personally. It's feeling very smooth. And so for Leo risings, particularly, it's a pretty good karmic cycle. So I'm wishing you guys an awesome next 18 months, and I will see you guys very soon. So if you are a Virgo rising in Sidereal, or that would make you a Libra rising in the tropical system, this is how the North Node changing signs is going to affect you for the next 2 years and what kind of karmic cycle you're being engaged in for the next 2 years. So it's a very important time. Essentially, what's happening is that the North Node and the South Node, we're traveling in Taurus and Scorpio for the last 2 years. And on March 26th, they are going to be switching into Aries and Libra. So a whole new karmic cycle is beginning. As I stated in the beginning of the video, the North Node and the South Node are two calculation points that indicate karmic activity in the birth chart. And so for the last 2 years, when the North Node and the South Node were in Taurus and in Scorpio, they've been hitting your 9th house and your 3rd house very heavily. So your main growth, your main karmic growth has been happening in matters of higher minded studies, in matters of your higher perspective of the world around you, in matters of your higher minded belief systems of the world around you. So you've really been growing and expanding your viewpoint, your perspective of the world around you in such a profound way, maybe through traveling or maybe through exploring fields of study that are more abstract, so more higher minded, such as spirituality, metaphysics, philosophy, religion, etc. So you've been possibly just gaining more wisdom through studying new topics that you've never explored before. And that exploration has really allowed you to shape up this new expanded perspective of the world around you. And your belief systems have really expanded on a karmic level as well. And so this cycle, which was very mental, very intellectual, is coming to an end after March 26th. So at this moment, you're probably feeling very completed when it comes to the perspective that you have of the world around you. You probably have this sense of just completion of finally feeling like, okay, you really have this really clear picture of your belief systems and what you believe about the larger picture of this reality of the world around us. And so it's probably a very fulfilling feeling. With this cycle being over, you just have this very completed wider picture of reality. And so this cycle, again, this karmic cycle is coming to an end, and you have this new karmic cycle that is going to be starting up on March 26th, when the North and South Node are going to be moving into your 8th house and your 2nd house. And so yeah, karmically speaking, you're going to be growing in matters of the 8th house. And so the North Node is where we have to put our focus on in order to grow the most on a soul level. It's also where we're experiencing new things, where we're expanding as a person in order to really allow us more growth as a person as well. The South Node, which is on opposite ends, is kind of what we're releasing, what we're letting go of, what we're purging on a karmic level, because things of this house do not serve us anymore. And so there's a lot of, releasing that comes into matters of the house that the South Node is going to be traveling in. And so for you, the North Node will be in your 8th house for the next 2 years, and the South Node will be in your 2nd house. And so this means that you will be experiencing a lot of personal growth through matters of the 8th house for the next 2 years. And so the 8th house and 2nd house axis is a very financial axis. They both deal with financial matters. The 2nd house deals more with personal resources, while the 8th house deals with external resources. So resources that we gather from the external. So this may be banks, this may be, loans, inheritance, debts, taxes, etc. So you might be experiencing newfound growth through exploring financial matters that are less personal. So maybe, loans, maybe investments, maybe business partners, maybe these sorts of activities with finances are things that are going to be subject to a lot of new growth during this time. So it may be a good time to, invest or just gain more information about that, because it's really where you're growing. The 8th house is also the house of, death and rebirth. It is the house of transformation. It is the house of, hidden energies that may come up to the surface, more shadowy energies that may come up to the surface. And so it's a very psychological house as well, where it really deals with things that are deeper, deep beneath, deeper truth. It is the house of occultism. It is the house of mysticism. So with your North Node being there, it's going to be a time where you're going to be probably hyper focused on discovering the deeper truth of many different things, possibly of life in general, but possibly of yourself as well. So it's going to be a time where you possibly uncover a lot of deeper truth about yourself. Maybe you're going to uncover a lot of deeper psychological patterns about yourself. Maybe it's a time where you get really deep into occultism, into mysticism, even deeper, and discover deeper truth about the world around you through, exploring those, more taboo topics, right? Because the 8th house is the house of anything that is taboo. So we have occults that go in this category. We have astrology, we have mysticism, but we also have, sexuality as well. So intimacy too. So you may be growing a lot when it comes to your exploration with sexuality or with intimacy as well. So it may be a time where you're growing your ability to be intimate in brand new ways, in new expanded ways that you never thought were possible before. You're being intimate with people in ways that you would have never thought yourself to be able to be like that. Maybe you're growing your knowledge of the occults and, astrology or topics that are more taboo in ways that you never explored before. And it's really transforming you as a person to explore things that are more hidden and really allowing them to come up to the surface. It's really allowing you to experience potent transformations as a person. So it's going to be an extremely transformative time, again, because the North Node is where all of your focus is going to be put for the next 2 years. And the 8th house, which is where your North Node is going to be in, is the house of transformation. It is the house of death and rebirth. And so you're going to grow the most as a soul through experiencing a really, really deep process of death and rebirth, through experiencing a lot of potent transformations. And these transformations may come about through, exposing things that are deep hidden, exposing things that are usually hidden to you, So it's a really good time to study things such as psychology, or study things, such as occultism or astrology, anything that can, make you see things that you usually don't see about yourself or the world around you, and really expose deep-seated patterns about yourself. It's really gonna, kickstart this transformative and regenerative process of, death and rebirth of many different parts of yourself. And yeah, you're going to transform in ways that you never thought were possible. And you're really going to be purging and letting go of different and new parts of yourself as well. So it's possibly going to be a very intense time because the eighth house is quite intense. Again, it's death and rebirth, but that regenerative process comes through exploring things that are more taboo and shadowy and dark. So this may be a recurrent theme for you for the next 2 years. But again, a very good time to get into occultism, to mysticism, to things that are more taboo, because this is where your soul wants to grow the most. And putting energy in this area of life is really the medium in which your soul is experiencing the most karmic growth. So at this time, you're experiencing the most karmic growth through, exploring things that are taboo, hidden, and exploring the deeper truth of yourself and everything around you. Now, the South Node is going to be in your second house of finances, income, and personal values. So this means that some purging is going to be happening in terms of your finances, a lot of changes in your finances, okay, for the next 2 years. So this may look like releasing an old way of gathering resources. This may be, releasing or letting go of an old job even. As you transform yourself and as you're realizing the deeper truth of yourself, this may really push you to release old, old ways of gathering resources, an old job, or old values in general. Your values are really going to change. Maybe values around your material world, but just your values in general. For example, if you were someone who used to value being successful in the material sense very much in the past, this may be a time where you're really letting go of that old value, because you're realizing that the spiritual aspect of life, the more non-tangible aspects of life are really what or where you find the most value through discovering this deeper truth about yourself. And so this will result in you kind of letting go of this old value that you had of putting more value in the material world and the material successes. So in repercussions, you may see that your relationship with the material world changes, or just, many different relationships with things that you used to value before may really change and be purged out of your life as you start really purging old values and old things that you used to value beforehand. But yeah, a lot of changes in your finances, a lot of letting go of old ways of gathering resources, and a lot of letting go of, old income streams and old jobs possibly as well. So yeah, it is a very resourceful time for you, but it's kind of a really equal mix between, material world and resources, and, exploring a lot of deep, deep stuff, deep hidden stuff, deep taboo stuff. So, it's a really good time, again, to put energy in things that are of the eighth house matter. So external resources and occultism and things that are taboo and hidden. So I hope that this is useful to you. I hope that this has some value. I am wishing you an amazing next 18-month cycle, and I will see you soon. Okay, if you are a Libra rising in the sidereal system, or that will be Scorpio rising in tropical, this is how the nodes of faith switching signs will be affecting you personally. And so there's this new karmic cycle that is beginning for all of us individually, starting on March 26th, when the North Node and the South Node change signs from Taurus and Scorpio to Aries and Libra. And so for the last 2 years, the nodes of faith have been sitting in Taurus and Scorpio. And for you, that falls in your eighth house and in your second house. So the last 2 years, there's been, my cat just like jumped in the window, but there's been this karmic cycle that really revolved around finances for you, especially, finances that are maybe coming from external sources, such as banks, loans, taxes, and such. Since the North Node, which is where your soul grows the most, it's where you experience the most karmic growth, was in your eighth house of shared resources. But the eighth house is also a house of transformation. It's the house of death and rebirth. It is also the house of anything that is taboo, anything that is hidden. So the occult, sexuality, astrology, you know, intimacy, all those things that are considered a bit more taboo are matters of the eighth house. Psychology is also a really big thing with the eighth house. So in the last 2 years or so, you've been going through this karmic cycle of growth in this eighth house area of life. So you've possibly went through many different transformations, many different processes of death and rebirth through exposing a lot of things that are maybe hidden, usually hidden, and through really uncovering a deeper truth about yourself and about the world around you. And so this cycle of regeneration and transformation is really coming to an end right now with the North Node preparing to leave Taurus. So you're probably feeling very completed when it comes to this cycle of, you know, understanding maybe the deeper truth about life. So maybe through exploring occults or more mysticism, or maybe you just feel like you've went through this really big transformative process that you feel is finally really coming to a conclusion. You possibly also made a lot of changes or purges when it comes to your resources, your material resources, or also the way that you gather income. So that has probably been subject to a lot of purging, a lot of letting go as well. And so this cycle of, you know, finances, but also, you know, exposing yourself to the deeper sides and more hidden sides of life is coming to an end. Starting on March 26th, there's a new karmic cycle that will begin for you as the North Node and the South Node will move into Aries and Libra. And so for you, that will fall in your seventh house and in your first house. And so there's this new karmic cycle where you're going to be experiencing a lot of karmic changes and a lot of karmic growth into other different areas of life starting March 26th. And so the North Node will be moving into Aries, which is in your seventh house, and the South Node will be moving in your first house in Libra. And so with the North Node going into your seventh house, this means that you're meant to experience a lot of karmic growth at this time, and you yourself are growing on a soul level in a karmic way through matters of the seventh house. And so as we remember, the North Node represents where we have to go, where we have to put our focus, because it's where we're meant to experience the most karmic growth during the 2-year period, whereas the South Node is kind of where we're shedding things, where we're letting go of things, where we're kind of ending karmic contracts, where we're experiencing some sort of purging. And so for you, this area of, you know, focus and karmic growth and new karmic expansion is in your seventh house of one-to-one relationships and partnerships, marriage. But any one-to-one personal relationship is gonna be subject to a lot of new karmic growth and expansion for the next 2 years. Now, the seventh house is also contractual agreements. Here's my cat meowing, so we love that. The seventh house is also relationships or one-to-one partnerships that are based on contracts. So that can be lawyers, that can be counselors or coaches or etc. But mainly it deals with one-to-one personal relationships, and that can be romantic or platonic, or it can be friendships as well. And so with the North Node going in this area of your chart for the next 2 years, there is exponential karmic growth that is waiting to happen in your area of relationships. So you're going to be growing essentially your relationships in very karmic ways, but you yourself as a person is going to grow in exponential ways through your relationships as well. So expect a lot of karmic partnerships for the next 2 years. So the people that you're going to meet and you're going to start engaging one-to-one relationships with, ultimately they have a very, very strong karmic purpose. Anyone who starts developing a one-to-one relationship or partnership with you at this time has a larger karmic growth or karmic role in your life because of the North Node going into your seventh house, indicating that a lot of your karmic growth is happening through your partnerships, your one-to-one partnerships. So really, you know, watch out for those one-to-one partners. That can be romantic or that can be friendship, but anyone who really enters your life at this time feels really fated. It feels like there's a larger reason why they're really entering your life. And that's because, you know, they have specific things to teach you and specific karmic contracts with you that are meant to happen at this time. And they're meant to teach you more about yourself. Through these really karmic partnerships. You're also really going to be growing, you know, your ability to compromise with people, your ability to, you know, link with people and kind of build a harmony and peace with other people. This is going to be a quality of you that's going to really grow karmically during this time. You're really going to, you know, expand into new relationships, possibly new romantic relationships or new, platonic relationships that are really expansive. And, they might be the types of relationships that you've never really had before, or you might attract people that are really different than what you've attracted before. It's really like you're going to start attracting one-to-one relationships that are very different, very unique, very karmic, possibly that you've never experienced before. And that is, again, because you're experiencing a lot of karmic growth as a person through your one-to-one partnerships. So the South Node is going to be traveling in Libra in your first house. And so this means that you're going to be purging and, letting go and releasing a lot of things karmically when it comes to matters of the first house. And so the first house is the house of the self, the identity, the way that the world perceives you, the way that you want to be perceived by the external world. It's also your motivation in your path. And so with the South Node traveling in your first house, you're literally going to be purging a lot of your identity, a lot of the way that you perceive yourself, a lot of, the way that you want to be perceived by the outside world. So really your identity and where you're going is subject to a lot of karmic release, a lot of karmic detoxification. And that might be transpiring through, other people coming into your life and really reflecting new parts about yourself and really making you see different things about yourself. And so your self-concept, your self-identity is really going to be changing, and you're really going to be letting go of an old way of perceiving yourself as a person, and possibly an old path as well, possibly an old career, because your first house being touched really usually melts down to any other area of life as well, because the first house being so karmically aspected, it's the house of the self, it's the house of how you perceive yourself and where your motivation is. And when there's karmic changes in this area, there's bound to be karmic changes in every other area of the chart. So for example, you might, really let go of an old version of yourself, and that really drives you to pursue a new career or to pursue new relationships through having a more clear idea of who you are as a person, through that process of really purging and letting go of some old aspects of yourself or versions of yourself that just don't resonate anymore and that do not align anymore karmically. And so, yeah, it is a very major transit for anyone who has Libra or Aries placements, Sun, Moon, Rising, but especially Rising, since this is touching such an important part of the chart, right? It's really your identity, your self-concept, and other people in your life and your relationships. So expect a lot of really big karmic activity when it comes to your partnerships, your one-to-one partners. They're bound to change, they're bound to expand very karmically, and that expansion of your partnerships is really going to expand you karmically as well. So yeah, very, very potent period for you, I would say. So this is what the next karmic cycle looks like for you for the next 18 months. So I hope that this was helpful. I hope that that you got some value out of this. And I'm wishing you an awesome next 18 months with this cycle, and I will see you very soon. If you are a Scorpio rising in the sidereal system or a Sagittarius rising in the tropical system, this is how the North Node and the South Node switch in signs will be affecting you personally, and which karmic cycle is really beginning for you for the next 2 years. And so there's a fresh new karmic cycle that is beginning for everyone starting on March 26th, when the North Node and the South Node moves from Taurus and Scorpio into sidereal, Aries, and Libra. And so the North Node and the South Node, again, are calculation points that have a very, very karmic connotation to them. So the North Node really indicates the area of life in which we have to focus our energy towards, we have to move towards, because this is where we're experiencing the most growth on a soul level. The most karmic growth on a soul level is through the area that the North Node is in. Whereas the South Node, which moves oppositely to the North Node, represents an area of life in which we have to do a lot of purging and detoxing, and we have to let go of things karmically. We have to kind of end karmic contracts with things that do not align anymore. And so let's first off touch a little bit on the last 2 years and the last karmic cycle that you were engaged in. And so for the last 2 years, since 2020, the North Node and the South Node were in Taurus and in Scorpio. And so for you, this means that the North Node was in your 7th house and the South Node has been in your 1st house. And so you've been experiencing a lot of karmic growth through your personal relationships because of the North Node being in your 7th house. So in the last 2 years, you've possibly had a lot of really powerful karmic relationships come your way that really allowed you a lot of self-growth and a lot of, self-realization. You've had a lot of like karmic encounters, and people just came into your life to feel to form one-to-one bonds with you, and they just seem to have a really bigger purpose than just, a casual relationships. They seem to have a very karmic purpose. So you've possibly met up with guides or just, new friends, new encounters, new relationships that have really expanded you as a person, that have really facilitated more karmic growth, for you as a person. You've possibly really built a new network and built new relationships with, new people, and relationships with people that are different than what you usually would have gone for. And you probably have had the chance to build a network that is much more expanded, and, relationships or close friendships or partnerships that are so much expanded, or so expanded and so different than what you've experienced before. And that has all had a very karmic connotation on you. So a lot of growth through partnerships. You've probably, again, have had the chance to form new partnerships that are very expensive. And the South Node, which has been in your first house, means that you've been purging a lot when it comes to your identity, your self-concept, the way that you want the outside world to perceive you. My French is like firing right now. It's like 10 p.m. and every time I speak English, like past like 9 p.m., it seems like it's just like degrading every minute. So sorry if you're having a hard time understanding me, but I'm doing my best. Anyways, as I was saying, the South Node is in the first house, which means that you've been purging a lot when it comes to your identity, your self-concept, the way that you want others to perceive you, the way that you portray yourself to the rest of the world. Also, your physical appearance, your physical body. You may have been doing some purging and some releasing in this area of life. And, this purging of your identity and your path has really been facilitated by the growth that you've been experiencing through relationships and the new reflections that people have really given you of yourself. So it's really been, this dynamic of meeting up with new people that have been really, really karmic encounters. And those karmic encounters have really allowed you to have a clearer self-concept and really purge old identities, purge old versions of yourself. So that's been very, very potent for you in the last 2 years. And so I'm not gonna lie, it's been a very intense karmic cycle for you, since it has been affecting two very, very personal houses, right? Literally your first house, which is your identity, and your seventh house, which is other people. And so that's what you've been experiencing in the last 2 years. So at this time, this karmic cycle is really coming to an end. So you're probably feeling a sense of completion, a sense of fulfillment when it comes to your one-to-one partnerships and your one-to-one relationships, whether they be romantic or platonic or friendship-wise. You're probably feeling this sense of just fulfillment, and this sense of like, you feel like you've been able to grow your network in ways that have been so expansive and so different, but so rewarding. You probably also feel this sense of completion when it comes to your self-concept, your identity, as you've been really able to define yourself more clearer through your relationship. So this karmic cycle is really coming to an end right now. You've really completed this cycle. And starting on March 26th, there's a new karmic cycle that is starting with the North Node moving into your 6th house and the South Node moving into your 12th house. And so with the North Node moving into your 6th house, this simply means that you really need to direct your energy towards this house, because you'll be experiencing a lot of your karmic soul growth through the activities of the 6th house. And so the 6th house is the house of health. It's the house of daily routine. It's the house of mundane habits. It's also the house of work and being of service. And so for the next 2 years, this karmic cycle is really all about you growing this area of life, expanding your ability to deal with your health, expanding your daily habits in new ways, your daily routines, expanding your work life and the way that you are of service to others. You're also really going to be growing a lot as a person on a soul level in karmic ways through activities of the 6th house. So really engaging with your work, with being of service, is really going to help you grow as a person. And really you're going to be experiencing karmic changes in your health and in your daily routine and in your mundane habit life that has a purpose of, allowing you to grow as a person again. So it's really the most karmic growth that you'll need to experience in the next 2 years is really going to come through the activities and the changes that involve your health and your daily routine and your mundane life. So it's a really good time to expand and try new things when it comes to your health, try new things when it comes to your work, be more unique, expand the way that you offer services, expand the way that you deal with your daily habits and, find new routines, find new habits. You might really notice, possibly health flare-ups during these times or problems with your health, but it's really just because you're experiencing a lot of karmic growth through your health. You're really being shown where you need to change things around in order for you to really be fulfilled in a more optimal way. So it's kind of like you might get, hints of things that you need to change with your health, and you're gonna get the opportunity to expand when it comes to the way that you deal with your health and your daily routine and your work. So yeah, it's gonna be a very mundane time, but that mundane time has a very, very karmic connotation to it. Now the South Node is gonna be in your 12th house. This is very major because the South Node is all about purging. It's all about letting go and releasing of things karmically. The 12th house is the house of endings. It is the last house of the astrological system. So it's the house of endings. It is the house of loss. It's the house, it's the last chapter, right? So anytime we have a 12th house activation, there's a lot of purging that is involved. And so all in all, like there's going to be so much purging for you when it comes to many different areas of your life. And the 12th house is also the house of things that are usually hidden to us. So things that we cannot perceive. Usually that will involve, things that are hidden in our subconscious. It may touch on our, mental health. It may touch on our, like self-sabotaging habits, but anything that we repress or we keep hidden at this time for you for the next 2 years, you're going to go through this karmic cycle where you're going to have to release those things that you usually hide from, or those things that you usually repress, or those self-sabotaging habits that you may still have. So that's why it may be a period where, the concept of mental health really comes up to the surface, where you're really being asked to release, old anxieties and understand where they come from and really uncover them and bring them to the surface and really release and purge them. The 12th house is also the house of dreams. And, in my opinion, dreams are a very, clear bridge to the subconscious, to the unconscious mind, because they kind of fire up things that we usually choose to repress, right? So you're probably going to get a lot of messages through your dreams about the things that you usually hide from that you're going to need to let go. So it's all in all, it's going to be a big period of purging because the 12th house is the last house of the zodiac and it rules endings. So a lot of things that do not align anymore karmically in general are going to be purging out of your life as you focus, on your capacity of being of service, as you focus on your health. On the other end, you're going to be releasing so much karmically. The 12th house is also the house of, spirituality, spiritual beliefs, religion, faith. You may be releasing old ways of approaching your spirituality at this time, but the thing with the South Node is that it can also bring stuff up from the past. And so when the South Node is traveling in the 12th house, which is a very psychic house, it can bring, old psychic gifts or old spiritual gifts that you used to tap into maybe in a past life. So that is something that is very common, re-tapping in with an ability or a spiritual ability or a spiritual gift that was usually used in the past or in a past life. So it's going to be a good time, to focus on resting, to focus on introspection, but especially just focusing on really purging and letting go of habits or energies or things that you keep within yourself that are just not meant to continue anymore. And it's going to be just a big period of purging in general of many different things karmically in your life that take up space, that take up energy, and that are not meant to be there anymore. So that is the main thing to know with the South Node being in your 12th house, but it's really going to be the time for you to focus more so on the North Node area of life, which for you is going to be your health, it's going to be your diet, it's going to be your, your routine, your mundane life. So it's a good time to try a new diet, to try to expand your habits in a new way, to try to expand the way that you are of service of others, try to expand the way that you work, your work environment, your workplace, etc. So this is where you're going to be growing a lot, and you'll be growing a lot as a person through exploring this realm of your life more profoundly. So I think I'm very pretty complete on this. So I hope that this was useful. I hope that this is of value to you. I'm wishing you an awesome and amazing next 18-month cycle. Like and subscribe to my YouTube channel if you want more of this content, and I will see you next time. So if you are a Sagittarius rising in the sidereal system, or that would be a Capricorn rising in the tropical system, this is how the North Node and the South Node changing signs is going to be affecting you personally, and what kind of new karmic cycle is beginning for you at this time. And so on March 26th, collectively, all of us are going to be starting a new personal karmic cycle, as the North Node and the South Node will be changing signs from Taurus and Scorpio into Sidereal, Aries, and Libra. And so this is very major. It's a period of 2 years where we're going to be growing karmically in new ways in which we haven't experienced before. And so before we get into, this specific forecast, let's go back a little bit to the last 2 years in order to understand where the North Node and the South Node were positioned for you. And so where or which karmic cycle that you've really completed. And so in the last 2 years, the North Node and the South Node were traveling in your 6th house and in your 12th house. And so the North Node was in your 6th house of health, mundane routine, work, and being of service. And the South Node was in your 12th house of spirituality, subconscious things that are hidden. So you've been growing karmically through matters of the 6th house because of the North Node being in your 6th house. And so you've likely had a lot of new experiences when it comes to your health. When it comes to your mundane routine, you've probably really grown as a person through exploring matters of health and daily routine in your habits, but also you might have really explored work or being of service in ways that have really been expansive for you, or ways that have really allowed you a lot of karmic growth personally. You might have been in a work situation that has been really expansive, that has really allowed you a lot of, potent karmic growth on a soul level. A lot of growth through your work experiences, or you might yourself have really expanded your work situation, or you might have decided to be of service to others in a brand new way, in a brand new expanded way that you've never explored before. And that specifically has really brought you a lot of personal growth, a lot of personal, karmic growth as a person. And so again, this exploration of the 6th house, the more mundane aspects of life, is really where you've been experiencing new expansion, new growth, but also it's really where you've allowed yourself to grow the most as a person. Now, with the South Node in your 12th house, you've been releasing a lot of things in your life in general, but you might have been releasing and purging a lot of old energies that you usually hide from or you usually repress. You might have been releasing, old anxieties, old fears, old subconscious stuff, again, that you usually keep repressed. You might have been asked to release that. You might have been, you might have encountered old spiritual abilities or old spiritual concepts that might have come to you that you might have already exercised in a past life or in your past in general. And so it's just been all in all a time of big detox in your life, as you've been really focusing on, the area of health and the area of diet and the area of mundane life and mundane habits and work. And so you were probably feeling very completed at this time and very fulfilled when it comes to your work life, when it comes to your ability to be of service to others, and your ability to structure your daily life and to structure and organize your life in general. You're probably feeling very completed and very fulfilled as you have now really completed this karmic cycle that was being engaged for you in the last 2 years. And so this is coming to an end starting on March 26th. When the North Node and the South Node will be moving in Sidereal, Aries, and Libra. And so for you, this kickstarts a new karmic cycle in the 5th house and in the 11th house of your chart. And so essentially what's happening is that the North Node is moving into your 5th house of creativity, of hobbies, of fun, of pleasure, of passions. And the South Node is moving into your 11th house of friendships, group communities. And so the North Node, wherever it is in the chart, so whichever house it is touching, is basically a house in which we're going to be expanding and experiencing a lot of karmic growth. It's going to also be a house that's going to allow us to experience a lot of karmic growth as a person as well. So putting energy towards this house is really the kind of is really going to catalyst the karmic growth that we're experiencing as a soul, as a person. And so the North Node is always where we need to put our focus and our energy for the next 2 years. It's where we're experiencing things that we never have before. And it's really the motive to which we are allowing more karmic growth on a soul level to us personally. Whereas the South Node, which is always situated in opposite house or an opposite sign, dictates an area of life in which we are experiencing a lot of karmic purges, an area of life in which we are, releasing a lot karmically, an area of life in which we might see the old things from the past come back up, or an area of life in which we are experiencing, a lot of karmic purging and, karmic contracts coming to an end and doing some releasing. And so with the North Node going into your 5th house, this is quite a fun transit, to be honest. This is not a bad transit at all. It's a pretty cool 2-year karmic period for you where you're going to be growing a lot through your hobbies, through what you find fun, through what you find passionate, through what you have a passion for. The 5th house is also the house of children. So you might experience new growth in children, or you might yourself conceive children. It is a possible thing. Or you might really grow and expand your relationship with children in new exponential ways. Or if you have children, you're really expanding your relationship with them and your bond with them in new ways that you never would have thought possible. But really what's happening with this transit overall is that you as a person are growing karmically on a soul level through exploring new hobbies, new ways to find pleasure, new ways to find fun, new ways to explore hobbies. You might also explore or kind of explore passions or hobbies that are very new to you, that bring up a lot of expansion, and so there's a lot of new expansive karmic energy when it comes to your passions, when it comes to your hobbies, when it comes to your fun. So you may eventually start to engage in a new hobby or a new passion that is very different, that you might have not explored before, but that ends up really changing your life karmically, because it just changes you as a person and allows you this really potent karmic personal growth. So again, you're really growing a lot through fun, through pleasure, through finding ways to have fun, and through what you find to be what you find the most passion in. And so it's a great time. Again, the North Node is where we are supposed to put our focus on for 2 years. It's a great time to explore that, to explore what you find fun, to explore what you are passionate about, to explore your hobbies, but also your creative expression. The way that you express yourself creatively is really bound to new expansive or new expansion or new growth that you would have never thought to be possible. Maybe you start expressing yourself on social media or through your business in ways that you never thought you would express yourself. Or maybe you develop a new creative hobby and you start really expressing that hobby, and it really changes you karmically as a person. It brings so many karmic changes in your life, right? So it's a really good time to explore that, to explore what you like to do, because it's fun for you, because it's natural, because it's pleasurable. Romance may also be things that are very karmic at this time, like romantic affairs, dating and such may also bring a lot of karmic changes. But yeah, all in all, it's really about exploring your passions, your hobbies, your pleasures. With the South Node in your 11th house, this means that there's some possible very karmic purges when it comes to friendships and groups and communities. So some of the friendships or some of the groups that you might have engaged in previously might just be, outdated. They might have really finished their karmic contracts, and you might just see that they are just naturally wanting to be purged out of your life, or they are naturally wanting to be let go of. Another thing that is very possible is just the South Node usually brings a lot of, stuff from our past that is very karmic. And so when the South Node is in the 11th house, it may bring, friendships and communities that feel very karmic, that feel very fated, that you might have, engaged with in a past life. And that's very possible. And you start being friends with people and it just clicks as if you already knew them before. And it's really, really, really karmic encounters with friends, with communities, with groups that seem to be, coming from the past or from past lives, or just they seem to have a very karmic connotation to them. So a lot of karmic changes are bound to happen in your friendships, in your groups, in your communities. You're going to be experiencing eclipses in this space as well. So expect changes in that space. It's a good time to start purging, to start releasing old, groups, old communities that you just don't resonate with anymore. And the friendships that you'll make at this time will have a very, very karmic connotation to them. So yeah, I think I'm pretty complete on that. So it's a very fun cycle, actually. It's a pretty cool karmic cycle to be engaged in for the next 2 years. So I'm wishing you an amazing next 18 months. I hope that this was useful. I hope that you found value in, and if you like that, please like and subscribe to my new YouTube channel. If you are a Capricorn rising in the sidereal system, or that would be Aquarius rising in the tropical system, this is how the changes of the North Node and the South Node will be affecting you personally, and what kind of new karmic cycle you can expect to be engaged in starting on March 26th. And so we have this very big collective shift starting on March 26th, where each of us individually is going to be experiencing a brand new karmic cycle through the North Node and the South Node switching from Taurus and Scorpio into Aries and Libra. And this is very potent. It is a very, very karmic shift. And so there is a certain cycle that is really coming into completion right now, that is really coming into an ending. And we're all really getting ready to start this brand new karmic cycle with the North Node and the South Node changing signs very soon. And so before we go into this new cycle for you and what it looks like, let's kind of take a rewind and look at the last 2 years for you and see where the North Node and the South Node have been traveling. And so where you've been experiencing this really potent karmic cycle. And so for the last 2 years, the North Node and the South Node have been in Taurus and in Scorpio. And so for you, Capricorn rising, that has been in your 5th house and your 11th house. So you've been experiencing a lot of karmic growth when it comes to your hobbies, your fun, your pleasure, what you find fun in, what you're passionate about, the way that you express yourself creatively. You've been growing this area of your life a lot. There's been a lot of karmic shifts in this area of your life. And you've been growing a lot as a person through exploring this area of your life. You maybe have started a new creative hobby, or maybe you've explored a new passion or a new creative self-expression that has really changed your life, that has really put you on a new path. Maybe you've really discovered new ways that you like to find pleasure or like to find fun, that have really expanded you and that really grew you karmically on a soul level as a person during the last 2 years. This could have also been also have impacted your children. If you have children, your relationship with children might have really expanded in new ways, or you might have had, new karmic activity when it comes to your children. You might also have experienced, some degree of purging, some degree of letting go. When it comes to your friendships, when it comes to groups, communities, you may have experienced a lot of karmic changes when it comes to the groups that you associate yourself with. And you might have also met people that have ended up having a very, very karmic role in your life that were friendships as well during this time. And so at this time, this cycle is really coming into a completion. So you might be feeling this sense of completion, this sense of fulfillment when it comes to, how you find fun, how you have what you find passion in, and what kind of hobbies you indulge in. Maybe there's this process that is really feeling like it's completed right now when it comes to the way that you engage in fun and engage in pleasure and engage in hobbies. There might be this process of completion when it comes to a specific hobby that you've really worked on and expanded over the last 2 years, and this feels very fulfilling. It feels like you've been experiencing so much growth in this area, and it's finally in this process of completion where you're really seeing a clear picture around your fun and pleasure house. And so this karmic cycle is really coming into an end right now. We're coming to an end as the North Node and the South Node are going to be changing signs from Taurus and Scorpio into Sidereal, Aries, and Libra on March 26th. And so for you, that's going to be starting a brand new karmic cycle, and that's going to be active for the next 18 months. So yeah, so for Capricorn rising, the North Node is essentially going to be moving in your 4th house, and the South Node will be moving in your 10th house. And so the North Node is always where we need to put the most focus on, where we need to direct our focus in order to grow the most karmically, because the North Node indicates an area of life in which we are meant to experience the most karmic growth through this area. And so we really need to focus more energy or focus on this area of life, because it's really where we're going to grow the most on a karmic level through this area. It's really the area that's gonna allow us to experience the most karmic growth as a person. So that's why we're really having to put more energy in the area that the North Node is situated in. It's also an area of life that's going to be expanded and growing in new and karmic ways for the next 2 years. Whereas the South Node, which is always traveling in opposite ends to the North Node, represents an area of life in which we are going to be experiencing a lot of karmic releasing, a lot of karmic purges, a lot of karmic endings in this area of our lives, as we're really ending karmic cycles, karmic chapters through, purging a lot with this area of our lives. And so for you specifically, for Capricorn rising, the North Node will be in your fourth house of home and family and domestic life. And so you're really going to be experiencing a lot of new karmic growth in this area of your life. So this may look like, new expansive growth when it comes to your home life, when it comes to your domestic life. This may look like moving into a new home or changing things up in your home that are really new, that you've never done before, but that end up really bringing you a lot of karmic growth, bringing you a lot of personal growth. That might look like also a lot of karmic activity when it comes to your family, when it comes to your immediate family or your relationship with your family. Maybe your relationship with your family grows in new and expanded ways that you would have never really explored before, right? So there's a lot of focus or emphasis that's really putting or being put on your personal life more so than your public life at this time. So it's really going to be a time to focus on domestic matters, on family matters, also property. So it's a good time to work with property, to buy new property, to expand to new properties. It's also a time that you may be getting more clear on your foundation, your emotional patterns that come from the foundations that you've built from your family. So it's all in all, it's more so a time of focus on your personal life. There's going to be a lot of new karmic growth coming around in your home life, in your family life, new activity, new really new growth that you've never experienced before within your family and within your domestic life. So it's going to be a time that, it's literally the time to spend at home. It's going to be a time where your personal life is going to be really emphasized. And the South Node will be traveling in your 10th house of career, professional life, professional ventures, public life, reputation. So it's going to be a time where you feel like, not as much focus is being put on your career at this time. It's really like all the karmic focus is being put on the 4th house of home and family, because this is really like your gateway towards the most personal growth right now, and it's really where you're expanding as a person. And so career, professional life is going to be, it's going to feel like it's a little more, on the back burner for the next 2 years, but it's also a possible time of karmic release and karmic detox when it comes to your career life, when it comes to your professional life. Maybe a time where you're really releasing old career path, you're realizing that you may be ready to release a career as a whole, maybe as well. I've seen people go through this karmic transit. They go through retirement, for example, and they really let go of their career life, let go of their public life. Or if you're not in this space, it might just be that you're letting go of an old career path and an old, reputation that you used to value, that you used to like. But now it's kind of like, you don't really resonate with it anymore. And it's kind of like your contract with this career, with this career path is really coming to an end, and it's being kind of exited in your life. Another thing is that the South Node will tend to bring a lot of karmic past activations. It might bring stuff up from the past for it to be revisited. And so with the South Node traveling in your 10th house, you might see, you know, maybe old career opportunities that you used to have before, maybe come back up to the surface, or new career path, or new, you know, career opportunities that maybe, you know, you had in the past really come back up again to the surface so that you can explore them again. And so all in all, yeah, it's going to be a time where you're really releasing a lot when it comes to your career. It's not going to be a time, I would say, to focus too much on your public life, on your reputation, because, you know, again, a lot of your growth, your soul is wanting to grow the most right now through your family, through, you know, building those personal bonds with your family, through, you know, exploring your domestic life, what you need in your home, you know, what kind of home that you feel would fulfill you and would allow more personal growth, you know. So it's going to be a time to focus on, you know, personal matters, more so than to put energies on, or put your energy on your career matter, because this is really where, you know, endings are being announced and really old karmic cycles are being finished with your career. So I think I'm very complete with this. So I hope that this was helpful. I hope that you found value in this. I am wishing you an amazing next 18-month cycle. And yeah, please like and subscribe if you would like to see more of these kinds of predictive videos. If you are in an Aquarius rising in the sidereal system, or a Pisces rising in the tropical system, this is how the North Node and the South Node changing signs will be affecting you karmically, and which new karmic cycle is beginning for you at this time. And so on March 26th, collectively, all of us are going to be experiencing a shift and a new karmic change, or a new karmic cycle that is being engaged through the North Node and the South Node, switching from Taurus and Scorpio into Aries and Libra, and to sidereal Aries and Libra. And so for all of us individually, this means a brand new karmic cycle and brand new area of karmic growth for the next 18 months. And so this will be affecting you personally in a very specific way. But before we get into this new karmic cycle, let's kind of rewind a little bit to the last 2 years in order to understand where the North Node and the South Node have been in the last 2 years, to know which karmic cycle has really been completed at this time. And so for Aquarius rising, in the last 2 years, when the North Node and the South Node were in Taurus and in Scorpio, this has been fallen in your, sorry, there's like something in my eye, but this has been falling in your 4th house and in your 10th house area of life. So you've been experiencing a lot of karmic growth in your 4th house area of life, and a lot of purging in your 10th house area of life. And so with the North Node being in your 4th house for the last 2 years, a lot of that focus, a lot of that, you know, primal focus and growth and energy has really been put on matters of home and family, because this has been where the North Node was in the last 2 years. And the North Node pinpoints an area of life in which we experience a lot of karmic expansion and growth, and an area of life which allows us a lot of personal growth as a person as well. And so in the last 2 years, you might have been really focused a bit more on home and domestic matters. You might have been really spending a lot of time at home, really considering your personal life, you know, expanding your personal life karmically. You might have been experiencing a lot of new growth with your family. You know, relationship with your family has really been a primal focus, where it's really been at the forefront of the story. You know, new expanded relationship with your family. Maybe that you grew closer with your family members in a way that you've never had before. And so, you know, a lot of that karmic activity with your family has really been highlighted in the last 2 years, but also in your domestic life, in your home life. You might have moved a lot. You might have expanded and moved in homes or in domestic situations that you would have never thought you would have explored before. And that really grew you as a person. You experienced a lot of karmic events through your domestic life, through your home life, which really triggered a lot of potent karmic growth on a soul level. On opposite ends, the South Node, which is always situated on the opposite end or in the opposite sign, was in your 10th house of career and professional life. So there's been a lot of purging. There's been a lot of letting go when it comes to career, when it comes to professional matters, when it comes to reputation. you might have really been, kind of purging old ways of approaching your career, old ways of approaching your professional life. You might have actually purged a career path as well. That's possible. It's just not been a time where career was very highlighted for you. It's really been a time of, growth in your home, in your personal life, and in your domestic life. And so at this time, at the end of this cycle right now, you're probably feeling some sort of, completion and sense of, things being completed or a cycle being completed when it comes to your career, when it comes to your home life. You might just have more, clarity and more of a clearer picture of the relationships that you want with your family and the home life that you desire. And you feel like you've been experiencing a lot of growth in this area of your life. And, as of course, this cycle is coming into an end right now. So this cycle of growth in your career and in your home life is really coming into an end. And on March 26th, when the North Node and the South Node are switching signs, you're going to be experiencing a brand new cycle into different areas of life. And so on March 26th, the North Node will be switching into Sidereal Aries and South Node in Sidereal Libra. And so for you, the North Node, which is where we have to put a lot of our focus and our energy because it's where we're growing the most karmically, is going into your third house. And the third house is the house of communication. It's the house of teaching and learning. It's also the house of, the way we express our thoughts, but it's also the house of mindset, our thought process. And so at this time, for the next 2 years, you're experiencing a very, very karmic cycle that's allowing you to grow in new ways when it comes to mindsets, when it comes to the way that you orchestrate your thought process. You're really expanding and growing your mindset in new and expansive ways that you've never explored before. Also, the way that you communicate, you may really grow karmically in the way that you communicate your thoughts and the way that you communicate with others and express with others. You might also be experiencing a lot of karmic growth through conversations with others. That's another possibility, but through learning and through the information that comes into your perception at this time. So what you're learning, the information that you're putting yourself close to is really, really karmic. It's allowing you a lot of personal growth on a soul level. So that karmic soul growth that you're searching for at this time, it is coming through conversations, but also information and what you learn. And so this may be a time that's going to be very, very, very cognitive, very, very, very intellectual, where you're going to start being exposed to, maybe teachers, maybe people who have information to teach you at this time. And this information is really going to change the course of your life karmically. It's really going to cause a lot of huge karmic shifts in your life. And so it's a good time to honestly enroll in some sort of course or just, read more books, consume more information, because this information has a very, very karmic connotation at this time. Again, your mindset, the way that you think about things on a day-to-day basis is subject to a lot of changes. You're going to realize, a new expanded way that you can orchestrate your mindset on a day-to-day life. And that's really going to bring you a lot of karmic changes and growth as a person as well. But, the third house is also the house of, it is a traveling house, but it's more so like short distance travel. So it's not long distance traveling like going abroad or like going overseas. It really rules the traveling that we do that's very close to us. So like road trips of a few hours or like traveling in the same country, but it is a traveling house. So the traveling that you do at this time that is more short distance can actually result in really deep karmic changes in your life, can really result in some potent changes in your life. And so I would really take the opportunity to indulge in any of those, short distance travels, opportunities that you might get in the last or in the next 2 years. The third house is also the house of vehicles and transportation. So you might be experiencing new expansion in your vehicles, in the way that you go about transporting yourself from one place to another. And the third house, finally, it is the house of community in a way. It is the house of immediate community. So it's the house of like neighbors and the community, the people that you surround with yourself with every day. And so with the North Node in your third house, you might have, new karmic expansion when it comes to your community, the communities that you hang out with. You might start, hanging out with communities or groups that are really different than what you're used to. And it turns out it really works well, and you're really growing as a person through experiencing these relationships. Or you might like start being friends with like a neighbor or someone that's like in your immediate environment, and that's a very new relationship that you would have never really engaged in beforehand, but it ends up being very, very karmic for you. It ends up allowing so much karmic growth for you, and it ends up, possibly even changing your life in a very karmic way. And so this is really where you're growing the most on a soul level in the next 2 years. Now, the South Node, which is where we're purging and what we're letting go of, is going to be in your ninth house. Ninth house is the house of belief systems, of higher perception. It's kind of the higher perception that we have of the world around us. And so some of the belief systems that you might have been holding on to for a while about the world, about the way that reality works, it may be time for you to purge these belief systems and to purge these sets of perceptions that you have of the world around you. These perceptions or those beliefs that you might be holding on to, they may not necessarily be very constructive for you and your growth anymore. And your karmic contract with these belief systems are ending, and you're purging out a lot of old ways of perceiving the world around you and perceiving your life. And so it's a very, very intellectual karmic time where you're changing a lot, intellectually, in your perception, in your thought process. But this is, obviously changing you as a person as well. The ninth house is also the house of higher minded studies, such as spirituality, such as religion, such as philosophy. It's really oriented towards wisdom. And so the South Node can be, purging, but it can also be bringing up stuff from the past, again, to be revisited. And so you might encounter old spiritual wisdom that comes to you that really resonates, maybe comes from a past life. But yeah, just all in all, it's going to be a lot of purging when it comes to your perspective of things and your belief systems of the world around us and your reality. And it's going to be very refreshing, but it's going to be very intellectual, very cognitive. So definitely focus on learning, focus on, information, focus on expressing yourself. If you have something to teach yourself that you've been thinking about teaching with your North Node in your third house, it's a great time to just express yourself and communicate in ways that you have never before. So maybe, start that podcast or start that course, or, start teaching what you've always wanted to teach, and spread information and also, gain information. This is where you're really gonna, like putting focus on this realm, on this area of your life, is really where you're going to allow all the karmic growth that wants to happen through exploring matters of the third house. So definitely, communicate in ways that you've never had before, consume new information. It's really going to have potent karmic resolutions and conclusions for your life. So I hope that this was useful. I hope that this was of value to you. I'm wishing you an amazing next 18-month cycle. Please like and subscribe to my new channel if you'd like to see more videos like this. And yeah, I'll see you soon. So if you're in Pisces rising in the sidereal system or an Aries rising in the tropical system, this is how the North Node and the South Node switching signs will be affecting you personally, in which karmic cycles are beginning for you at this time. And so on March 26th, collectively, all of us are going to be experiencing a new karmic shift and a new karmic cycle through the North Node and the South Node, switching signs from sidereal Taurus and Scorpio to sidereal Aries and Libra. And so this is pretty big. It really indicates a new 2-year period where we're going to be experiencing karmic growth in 2 new areas of life. And so before we explore these 2 new karmic cycles for you and where it's going on for you, let's kind of rewind a little bit to the last 2-year cycle and really get an understanding of where the nodes were in your chart and which kind of cycles that you've completed at this time. And so since 2020, the North Node and the South Node were sitting in the sign of Scorpio and Taurus. And so the North Node, which is where we need to go towards to experience the most karmic growth, has been in Taurus in your third house. And the South Node has been in Scorpio in your ninth house. And so you've been experiencing a lot of growth in the last 2 years when it comes to the way that you communicate, maybe your mindset, maybe your thought process, the way that you think about things, your mindset. Really, the information that you receive has been really karmic. You might have been really learning some new things all over the place, which has really been allowing you so many more growth and so much more expansion as a person. You might have been learning things that you've never learned before, and that new knowledge, that new learning, those new learning experiences has really grown you in karmic ways. You might have also been experiencing a lot of growth in your transportation, in your vehicles, also maybe in your community, in your neighbors, or in people that are in your immediate environment. You might also have been experiencing a lot of karmic growth, karmic shifts and changes in your life through traveling, and especially short distance trips and traveling as well. So these are areas of life in which you've been really expanding and growing because of the North Node being in your third house. You've been really putting your focus towards this realm, and it's really been allowing you a lot of karmic new growth and change as a person. So maybe new ways of communicating have been coming to you, or new ways of expressing knowledge, or new ways of spreading information. Maybe you started a podcast, maybe you started a new course, or maybe just your mind in general has been able to be reconstructed, and you've been able to adopt a new mindset about things. You've also been possibly purging and letting go of old belief systems, old perception in regards to the world around you, in regards to reality, or the way that you perceive life, that we're just not really meant to continue with you anymore. We're just not really offering you the growth that you desired anymore. So those old beliefs, those old perspectives have really been purged out of your life. And so at this time, with this cycle coming into an end right now, you're probably feeling this sense of, fulfillment and completion when it comes to matters of, learning and information. And you're probably feeling like you have a much, better grasp on your communication, on your mindset, and intellectual matters. It just feels like it's really completed, like this cycle is really completed, and you feel very fulfilled in this area of your life. And so obviously this karmic cycle is coming into an end as the North Node and the South Node are moving into Aries and Libra. You're moving into a brand new karmic cycle, and two new areas of life are going to be changing drastically and karmically over the next 2 years. And so with the North Node changing into Aries, the North Node will be moving into your second house of personal finances and personal income, and the South Node will be moving into your eighth house of joint resources, as well as deeper, more hidden psychological energies and patterns. And so all in all, the next 2 years karmically is going to be very, very financially focused for you. You're going to be going through a lot of karmic shifts and changes in your finances as a whole. With the North Node in your second house, the North Node is where we need to put a lot of our focus over the next 2 years, because it's where we're experiencing the most growth, the most karmic growth as a person. And so this karmic growth for you, this expansion, is coming into your second house, which is personal finances, your personal income. The second house really deals with the material world, the physical world, but it really deals in regards to the finances and the resources that we gather from our own efforts, from our own ability. So it's not resources that come from anything external, such as like banks or investments. It's really the resources and the income that you gather from your own efforts and abilities. And so with the North Node being in this house of your chart for the next 2 years, you're going to be experiencing brand new growth and expansion in your ability to gather resources, in your ability to gather income. And new growth that you've never experienced before in this house is really, really probable, where you might notice that you start being able to gather income in brand new ways that you've never explored before. You start to understand how to gather more resources in ways that are expansive, and in ways that you've never really tried before. You may start exploring your abilities, and they might start really offering you this new income stream that really you've never explored before. And this new way of gathering resources and money and income is really allowing you to grow a lot karmically as a person. You're experiencing a lot of personal growth through your ability to find new ways to generate income, new ways to generate resources in your life. Your values may be also really expanding dramatically and karmically. And this is because the second house is also the house of values. And so where we find value. And so if you were someone, for example, who used to put a lot of value in, the physical world, and you never put any more value into anything else, this transit might be something that kind of allows you to expand your viewpoints on your personal values in new karmic ways, where you might be exploring new values that you've never really explored before. So maybe after this transit finishes, you start to realize that you put more value now on the more, on like spiritual wealth more than material wealth, right? So it's exploring new values, new sets of values that you've never really had before, that are really growing you as a person, that are allowing you to expand as a person in a karmic way. And so it's going to be a time to focus on, the financial parts of life, to focus on, your ability to gather resources and income, and finding new ways to do that, possibly in this 2-year cycle. Now, the South Node, which rules what we're purging, what we're letting go of, what we're releasing karmically, will be in your 8th house. And the 8th house is the house of shared resources. So it is resources that come from more external sources, such as investments, such as loans, such as, banks, such as inheritance, partners, partners that may be giving us money, etc. And because it is the South Node, this means that you really have to let go of this area and purge this area a little bit. So it's not going to be a time that's going to be really good to like depend on anyone else than yourself in terms of financial and financial matters. So it's not going to be a really good time to do, for example, a loan with a bank. It's the time to let go of your ability to gather resources from external sources. It's just not where your soul wants to grow right now. It's going to be a time to let go and release of old debts, of old, money that you owe people. Maybe it's a good time to let go of that. And it's just a time to let go of your tendency to want to reach out to external sources for financial reasons. And so it's going to be a time to do that. But also the 8th house is a very psychological house. It rules hidden, more shadowy energies that we keep inside of us, that we kind of have to bring up to the surface, and we transform through that. It's very powerful, but it can be a little bit intense, where you're going to be kind of pushed, or you're going to be invited to release a lot of old psychological patterns, and it's going to be very karmic, and it's going to allow you a lot of healing and a lot of potent changes as a person. But it may be a little intense, where you might have to revisit like old traumas or old shadowy energies or old, energies inside of yourself. And you're going to have to understand them on a psychological level and really kind of make peace with them and let go of them and heal them. So it is a really awesome time to, dig into the occult, such as astrology or mysticism, or, dig into psychology, and, even have a therapist during this time, as you will be really called to bring up old traumas, old shadowy energies that are usually hidden to the surface, because they're really wanting to get purged at this time. And it's going to be really relieving, but it is going to feel a little bit intense. But all in all, this 2-year period is really going to be karmically involved around, money and finances, and your ability to generate new ways of, income and resources through your own means and through your own values and abilities. So yeah, this is all I have to say for Pisces rising for this nodal shift. I hope that this was useful to you. I hope that you found value in this. I'm wishing you an amazing next 18-month cycle. And if you want more videos like this, please like and subscribe to my new channel. So yeah, guys, this was my full analysis of all 12 signs and how they are going to be affected by the changes of the North Node and the South Node on March 26th. So thank you so much for everyone who's watching. I really appreciate your presence in this new project of mine and in my new YouTube channel. I'm super pumped. I'm excited. I'm going to be filming a lot of, just transits, videos about the transits coming up and weekly horoscopes and new moons and full moons and all of that. So I'm very excited, but thank you so much for being here. Again, if you are wanting to, keep an eye on my channel and just participate in future videos, like and subscribe. And yeah, that's it. I'm excited to be producing some new content for you guys, and I'm wishing you an amazing rest of day.